if I was to be next 7 generations, if I had a choice of what career I'd like to choose, I would choose the same career. My profession would be hoteliering. First job was that of a disc jockey. I had a ponytail, I had hair longer than yours, and I would play in a discotheque, and I learned the importance of music. I learned the importance of customer satisfaction. For many years, I think the powers would be and the government that were believed that tourism is an elitist activity, right? And it was always ignored. In fact, in the Constitution of India in 1950, tourism was forgotten. Neither did it come on the concurrent list, neither did it come on the state list, neither did it come on the central list, right? And that was the importance to given to tourism. Far too many people don't know about this industry.
Yes.
So I think that's really the task that I've taken.
It is truly a blessing to have Mr. Nakul Anand sir gracing our show. So I won't take a long time of yours. Enjoy this phenomenal conversation full of learning, full of exposure, only on the hospitable couch. Welcome and watch the episode till the end. Nakul Anand sir, it has been a great pleasure sitting in front of you today. It's kind of a dream come true for me, a person who has always seen you during pre-hoteliering days, to be a hotelier like you. Today, it is such an honor to be in front of you, and having your time is not necessarily an honor for me. Thank you so much for your time, sir. What's your feeling today with the hospitable couch today?
Great, Rishabh, and it's really a pleasure. And anything to do with hospitality, it's a passion that I have. And I believe that it's one of the greatest industries. And I keep telling everybody that if I was to be next 7 generations, if I had a choice of what career I'd like to choose, I would choose the same career. My profession would be hoteliering.
That's indeed a great start to this conversation, sir. And I believe that people should look up to when it comes to following the passion and how you have spent your entire life in the hoteliering. And so what are we going to learn from you in this conversation today?
Well, I think the first thing is that to all the audience that are listening, I'd like to tell them that be proud of your profession.
Exactly.
Right? I've often quoted this as an example that you're at a social evening or you're at a university get-together or wherever you may be. You walk up to somebody and you ask that person, what do you do? A doctor will say, I'm a doctor. An engineer will say, I'm an engineer. An architect will say, I'm an architect. And a hotelier will say, I work for ITC, or I work for Taj, or I work for Leela. So my message to all of them is that we are a profession no less than a doctor, engineer, an architect. So your profession comes first, your company comes second. So when somebody asks you what you do, you say, I'm a hotelier. Then if they probe further and say, yes, in this profession I work for so-and-so. So message, hoteliering is a profession like any other, so be proud of it.
Thank you very much, sir, for imbibing this confidence in the entire hotel industry and people working in the hotel industry so that they can look up to and stand with the people with the other professions as well. So before we discover you as a hotelier and your life, which is too celebrated in terms of being a most eminent hoteliers of all times, something about pre-hoteliering days, like what was your life before entering into the hotels, your early days, or what is just a passion before getting into the hotels?
My early days is interesting. At a very young age, I went to a boarding school in Simla. I was at Bishop Cotton School. I didn't pass out as a boarder, I passed out as a day scholar, but I did all 11 years in that school. Sorry, I'd be lying, I did 12 years. I failed in KG. So I did 11 years in that school, and thereafter I went to college to Delhi University.
Okay.
And I studied economic honors. My first job, which sort of got me introduced to the hotel industry, although my mind had been made up. In fact, my school leaving certificate says that I want to be a hotelier. And that's given by the principal as a testimonial when you leave schools. Very early in my life, I had been influenced by my own experiences, influenced by a book that had just come out by Arthur Haley called The Hotel. He'd written a number of books. He'd written Wheels on the automobile industry in Detroit. He'd written The Airport. He'd written Hotel. And it was hotel that motivated me. And I realized that it was a profession. I did want to be a professional, but certainly didn't want to be what everybody was going to. Parents were pushing you towards medical, engineering, etc. So this is the profession I chose. And I think what sort of further justified or sort of gave me the confidence was that my first job was that of a disc jockey. I had a ponytail, I had hair longer than yours, and I would play in a discotheque, and I learned the importance of music. I learned the importance of customer satisfaction, and everybody would play music and go, but today's music and those days music was very different. That time you played on 2 discs, right, and you had long playing records, and therefore you had to play the 4th number of this and the 3rd of this and blend the music. So the first 2-3 days I just played normal music. Then I said, but what gets measured gets managed. I must have a challenge to myself. So the challenge I took to myself, that how well I could sense the mood in the music, how well could I blend the music together that every number I played, more people came onto the floor than they left the floor. You could have a great evening going, and one wrong number by you, the floor gets empty.
Exactly.
Right? So my personal challenge to me would be, with every number I played, I would enhance the music, keep the existing people on the floor, and bring more people from inside. Moral of the story, in everything there is a way to do it, there's a way to judge yourself, there's a way to measure yourself, right? And that's what's most important.
So when you approached professionally into the hotel world, so what was your family reaction like when you went up to your parents, or what kind of a thing that was? Or it was in your family, the tradition of hotels?
No, it certainly wasn't, and hoteliering wasn't a profession that was looked upon as an engineer, as a doctor, but I lost my father at a very early age, but my mother was most understanding, and left me with what I wanted to do. And I think the biggest motivator for her was the profession didn't matter. What mattered to her, that my father worked for ITC and I was joining ITC. Right. Although my father wasn't in hotels, he was in the Leaf area, but she was very proud that her son was joining where her husband had given his life for.
So you entered into ITC as a management trainee.
As a management trainee in the hotel business.
In the hotel business. So today's hoteliering, it is completely quite different if we compare it in your time and the other ways, because tech has a role to play, and today things are much faster than earlier times, and the more smart moves are taking place. So how did it turn in your case to be when you started with ITC as a management trainee? What were the challenges that you see that could have been managed with technology, which can be done right now?
Rishabh, I've seen through various stages, 45 years, 4 decades. When I began as a night manager, that was my first job. We would have Whitney racks for reservations. We would not have computerized system. There was no machine. There was something called an NCR 42, which was used for your bill, right? It was very different, etc. Today, there's technology, there's artificial intelligence, there's generative AI, there's just about everything, etc. But I think the basic fundamentals of hospitality never changed, right? Love for the customer and what we have to give, right? And that human touch was important then and it's important now. That time it was only human touch. It's now human touch and technology. Therefore, one has to be very careful that one does not contaminate the very core essence of service.
Exactly.
Right? And therefore, it's important to blend technology and touch. Always said, and rightly, it's no mantra. High tech, right? Only in low touch areas. High touch, low tech.
Low tech.
Right? So wherever there is a high touch, low tech, etc. And I think you've got to, very important to do this and bring this about, how you can use technology to enhance personalization without contaminating service.
As far as I understand, to be in hospitality business, it is something required, like you need to be very hospitable, like in our Indian household, in Indian families, the values that we inherit from our parents, to how to be presentable to a guest and how do we speak and how do we keep ourselves. Professionally, when you enter into hospitality business, what has it impacted in your personal life?
So I think firstly, in India has an advantage. Atiti Devo Bhava is ingrained in our culture. You and I both have grown up by every time a guest has come to our house, irrespective of whether he's come for a meal, he's come to stay with us, he's treated like God.
Exactly.
I mean, it goes without saying. And we've grown up in that. There's no second thing that we know about it, etc. So I think that's the most important part, that we grow up in this culture, and we continue to have this advantage by being where we are.
Anywhere in such a long span of almost 5 decades, I would say, did your confidence in the industry have some shakes and bounds, like ever the thought is right to have a switch from the industry, or your job was not going well, or having some lows in that life?
Rishabh, I'm an optimist. If I was to say that there were no laws, I'd be lying. The first was the plague, the Gulf War. All these are times, of course, in the pandemic when hotels shut down.
Exactly.
There are times when hotel occupancies came down to zero in the pandemic, right? There's the plague that happened. There's the Gulf War that happened. Anything that happens in the world affects the hotel industry.
Exactly.
These are the laws of the hotel industry. But one has always been confident, being an optimistic, that the hotel industry will bounce back. I predicted and I said in my capacity as head of many organizations at the end of the pandemic that this is going to be the golden decade of the Indian hotel industry. And the last 2 years have shown it, and I'm optimistic for the next 7 or 8 years will show. And I think that we make great hoteliers as Indians. We have great hotels, right? The country has a great potential for tourism. We are underexploited or underexposed. We have less than 1% of the world tourism share, having so 5,000 years of history. And as I keep saying that there are two types of tourism events that can take place. One are that are man-created, the Las Vegas. But then the Las Vegas can get replaced by Macau, for instance, would take away part of Asia's business. There was one Disneyland, they became 9. These are man-made tourist destinations, etc.
Yes.
Where we have an inherent sustainable advantage. We have a history of 5,000 years. We have monuments. We have heritage sites. We have in fact 28 or last I think 32 now. World Heritage Site, UNESCO, etc. So we have an history, right? We are today heading towards becoming the third largest economy in the world.
Exactly.
That gives us the edge for business travel. So between business travel, leisure travel, we are amongst the cheapest for medical care. We have great medical care. We have medical tourism. We have Bollywood. We have village tourism. Right? We have religious tourism. We have 4 of the 5 biggest Buddhist destinations I have. How many people have seen? So India's potential is immense in tourism.
I think audience would vouch for this conversation because the way you have described your life in terms of optimism as a leader, I think that is an essential quality that a leader should possess, of having an optimistic approach to every situation. So my next question to you would be, like a leader is always, like you always mention in your talks, that the real test of a leader is in adversity. So anytime while leading the company and while managing people, any decision of yours that you took and the result was not in your favor.
Rishabh, many decisions.
So how and how did you handle that?
So let me give you one very decision. This was in the early boom that India had just opened up in '92. Is when our economy really opened up. In 2001, 2002, hotels were booming. We were even giving crew rates that time of $300, etc. So we had a particular crew staying with us, and they came to it. They were at $100, and I was general manager at the mall, and I said we would now take you for $300. So this guy said 3 times, but there was no other choice because that was where the economy had moved in 1 year. So he said, okay, I'll give you $300, but you will sign a contract for 2 years that you will charge me $300 for 2 years. So confidence in me, I said, no, maybe next year I'll come back to you for 400. So I signed for only 1 year. The economy collapsed the next year, right? And we finally took the second year at less than $100. A mistake I made, but nevertheless, we sort of the revenue we lost, made it up through other means, etc. But it was a lesson well learned. Bird in hand is better than two in a bush.
Many challenges we have in our lives, like professionally, personally, a merge of both. So how important it is for a leader at any level while managing the team to, deliver the better productivity and better results. How it is to be important to have emotional connect and emotionally strong at the same time. And I would like to understand your views on relationships, building relationships.
Let me first tell you that the mind can be convinced, right? But the heart must be won, right? The only way a leader can succeed is by winning the heart of his people first.
Yes.
There's one example that I've always gone by, and again, as you said, how can I make my hindsight, the foresight of the people who are viewing this, etc. I've always said that a good leader is one who could be judged by the example of a mirror and a window, right? And this is also mentioned in a book, Good to Great, although I read about it much earlier. A great leader is one who, in the event of success, looks first out of the window, who's responsible for it. In the event of failure, first looks at the mirror and say, where did I go wrong? The other leader, who's not the best of leader, in the event of failure, looks out first the window and says, who made it happen? And in the event of success, looks at the mirror and says, what a great job I did, right? A great leader is who does just the opposite. In success, looks out of the window. In failure, first looks at the mirror. That makes all the difference to leadership.
What is that attractive essence of the company ITC when you entered as a management trainee? It holded up you to for so long. What made you to be associated with that company since your first day at job until?
Right. I think the company with a great reputation, right? It had demonstrated great results. It had demonstrated its culture, right, which is very appealing to most of us, etc. It's a people's first company. It looked after people. It always believed in growth from within. I'm an example, right, from a management training to a director in
Exactly.
ITC. That's why it lasted 45 years. They allowed you executional attitude. If you proved yourself worthy, they would give you a free hand to do what you like. No other company would allow you to do the sort of bring about the changes within, of course, within the realms of corporate governance, etc.
Yes.
But give you the sort of open field to bring about the change. So I still believe it's one of the finest companies that one could work for. And with every passing day, this company only gets better and better.
ITC in terms of a company has always been discussed on a positive note that significantly and comparatively it has kept its attrition rate very low. What was that factor behind this?
I'm an example again.
Yes.
Right? I would have taken the average higher.
Yes,
right?
yes,
If I've been in the company, but there's no reason to look outside. Right? There was absolutely no reason. In fact, very often people ask me, and I'm going on record and saying it, it's not because of that I stayed in the company, but in 45 years that I have remained in ITC, I have never been approached for a job. Not a single headhunter has come and asked me, right? Because people believe that you can't take away people from ITC. Some people you can't take away from ITC. But that is ITC's legacy. And why would you want to leave a company that looks after you so well, that gives you the opportunity to perform to the best of your ability, that recognizes that you have the potential, sends you for education seminars, trains you, grooms you, values you? What more can you ask for?
These days we see like people being into this industry, and they are at the lobby level and standing and greeting people and all. Somewhere on the other they think that they should transfer from one company to the another company for the growth factor, right? And so putting brand first and not yourself, what is the ideology behind this, and how can be there is a perception कि if a general manager is standing in the lobby, so any guest would approach because the ITC was better because so and so manager worked here, and if the manager moved to some another XYZ company, so the guest would also move there. So that is going adverse in terms of hospitality brand building actually. So your views on that?
I think there was a time when even when I was when I just taken over as head of ITC Hotel and I did my survey around and looked around, that when you change the general manager of a hotel, the fortunes of that hotel could change either way, right? It did not happen in some of our competitive chains, and I'm purposely not naming them, though I have great respect and regard for them. The reason for this was that obviously we were more people-driven than process-driven. A company has to be a combination of both.
Yes.
Right? Therefore, we then sat down with a team of people and had the most fabulous team in the operation. We wrote out about 600 procedures. We call them welcome procedures. Now, if a general manager changed, 80% of the procedures were defined, so you couldn't slip behind that. A good general manager makes all the difference, and I'm not denying that. I have great respect for general managers. I myself would like to have gone back to a general manager. Will make the difference from 80 to 95. But the company will not slip back to 40, 45 because the general manager changed. So it's a combination of good processes and great people.
Okay, what were the perks of a senior leadership at a 5-star hotel or a brand, to be very specific on
there is only one perk of being a senior leader in a company like ITC Hotel, right, that it allows you to do what you want, right, within the norms of corporate governance. It allows you to experiment, it allows you to execute new ideas, it doesn't put a lid, it allows you to take risks, right? That's the biggest perk.
In such a span of about 5 decades in your professional life, who has impacted in your senior leadership, and whom do you look up as your mentor?
Well, firstly, I think that there isn't a single person, a single boss that I didn't learn from. Right? I've heard many people say that this one was not this. But from every person there is some learning. Any general manager, any head of department, any vice president that I've worked with, I've learned from something. And I've always believed that life never stops. Teachings never stop learning. But for the people, I think the one that had the maximum impact on my life was Mr. ITC I worked directly under him, and he picked me up literally from a night manager and took me on to directorship of ITC, guided me, mentored me. In fact, one of his many advices that I've always followed is that never give up your reading, that you have a habit of reading, and no matter how busy you get as a hotelier, reading is what makes and knowledge compounds. In fact, it's Einstein who said that it's compounding is the eighth miracle of the world. Or eighth wonder of the world, because it compounds.
Compounding effect.
Yeah, compounding effect of knowledge.
So, mastering the art of managing people and convincing them, like giving your thought process and aligning their mindset with your mindset. What would be your advice to young people around, young budding hoteliers, or anybody, those who are in this business?
Well, carry on.
How do they align their mindset? Because I think they tend to lose patience at some kind of time. If they are not able to convince in the first go, or maximum the attempt is twice, but if the twice is the attempt and if they fail, they won't go further. So the purpose is defeated of whatsoever is being assigned. So the project or anything that goes in vain. So your take on this?
But persistence is important. You define your goals and you must work towards your goals, and don't give up till your goals are achieved. Of course, if for whatever reason you have to change them because circumstances of the environment have changed, that's a different issue. But persistence is important. Giving up after first, my advice to everybody was set your goals and go for it.
When five fingers are not equal are in the people as well. So how did you convince the people, like any of your team members who was like I won't use that word, but if their mindset was not as of yours, how did you convince
I
them?
think that's the role of leadership. You've got to first win your hearts. You've got to win their hearts, etc. And somehow you've got to make them believe, and you've got to carry the team with you, that my vision is our vision, right? How do I transform people and convince them through logic, through common sense, through examples, right? Rather than just it's a long process. The path to success was never easy. The journey was never the easiest, otherwise everybody would have done it, right? So you've got to work hard in being able to convince people that your vision is their vision too, and then you will get the results you want faster than you ever expected. And when credit comes, the credit is equally
distributed, right? I want to now understand, with every year when politics in our country is very affluent and it's very effective on every business. So what is the role of political administration in the hotel business? How does it impact?
I think over the years there's been a big change.
Mm-hmm.
I've done a lot of work for the tourism industry, and more than hotels now, I would like to believe that I play a role in the tourism industry, and hospitality is a part of the tourism industry. We began with a socialist mindset, and for many years, I think the powers that be and the government that were believed that tourism is an elitist activity, right? And it was always ignored. In fact, in the Constitution of India in 1950, tourism was forgotten. Neither did it come on the concurrent list, neither did it come on the state list, neither did it come on the central list, right? And that was the importance given to tourism. Life has shown, and there are examples to sort of prove what I'm saying, that tourism can be an engine of economic growth, and it's not an elitist activity. This government has realized it, and you can see that the Prime Minister speaking of tourism when he's overseas, and how he says that people must bring it. He wants to put tourism on the mission mode. We've had some great secretaries and some great ministers who headed this way. And I think that, and they've all realized the potential that there is for tourism in India. So I think the politics can play a big role, right? Or the ruling party or the government can. I think this government has realized the potential. I think the industry and they together have sort of managed to convince each other that this is truly can be the engine of economic growth. There are many reasons why it is the engine of economic growth. It employs as much of 8 to 9% of the workforce. It has 7 to 8% of the GDP. It has the highest multiplier effect, right, than any other business has.
Exactly.
It employs 52% women. The skill sets of the hotel industry or the tourism industry go from highly skilled to zero skill at all. What more can you have? The benefits of tourism pass to the region where they grew. So if you have rural tourism, it can develop that particular region where it is, where it accrues, etc. So the benefits of tourism are immense. This government has accepted it. They are in fact convincing people to sort of go into this industry more and more. And I think there's been a total change of mindset. That gives me further confidence to a statement that I made earlier, that I see a great decade, the golden age of decade for not only hoteliering, but also for tourism in India.
So when events like Incredible India and G20 happens, so what is the moral duty or moral, responsibility towards nation and towards other countries looking up to us in terms of hospitality, accommodation, excellent services, and most importantly, the security purposes? Because what has happened in 2611, it is nationwide. That was a moment where we were on our knees as a collective measure of a country. So how was it for you in terms of Incredible India and G20 when it came to India?
Incredible India is actually just a slogan, but let me talk about G20 since we were actively involved in G20.
Right.
An event like G20 is a two-edged sword, right? If it goes up well, it will hugely increase the tourism potential of India. If it goes wrong, you've just about lost a great opportunity, right? So I think all the service providers, we were service providers because we happen to be serving at the Mandapam, which is the main one, etc. It is upon us to make sure that it is a success. The team worked day and night. There were days when we were serving 40,000, 50,000 meals. There were people didn't sleep for 24 hours at a stretch, all because we put the nation first. This was a matter of national pride. Yes. You've got people from all over the world coming. Each one of them will go back. The government had some great thoughts. The pre-final meetings were held at various destinations. I think 60 or 70 different destinations were held, where meetings were held so that people are exposed to different parts of India. So it had a tourism mindset to it, etc. But coming back to my question, ours was that we were catering at the main event, and it was upon the team and they delivered that they just couldn't falter. It was national pride.
You think, like, while your active association in the industry, when you were being associated with ITC, you achieved that milestone for which you stepped into this industry for about 45 years ago?
Yes, I think that there are two things. That one is that my school leaving certificate, as I told you, says that I want to be a hotelier, and then at sometime in the middle of in the middle of 2019, I become the president of the Hotel Association of India, and then 2019 I become the Hotelier of the World. I get Corporate Hotelier of the World.
Hotelier.
Now, for somebody who wanted to be a hotelier and to hold that, although I must admit that when I was holding the sort of honor of the Global Hotelier, Corporate Hotelier of the World, there were 10,000 hands holding mine. I could never have achieved it on my own. I was only receiving it on behalf of people. But a proud moment that you set yourself to be a hotelier and you arrive at the highest pinnacle that you can be. I also worked at the tourism. We created something called the Faith. I was the chairman of Faith for 9 years, 8 to 9 years. Faith is the pinnacle body of tourism that represents 10 associations, it's a federation, and became the voice of the government and they sort of listened to us and always came to Faith should they need any assistance on tourism, be it planning, be it doing a projection note, being an action plan.
In your opinion, these awards and accolades, do they play a role in motivating you to perform better and deliver more?
Well, they do, but I don't think they should be the only motivator.
Exactly.
The motivator has to be a success. The motivator has to be how many people you've grown. The motivator has to be how many leaders you've created. The motivator has to be seen that your brand ranking was X and your brand ranking is X plus wherever. So along number of parameters, my motivator is that ITC Hotel was recognized for its green hoteliering.
Yes,
we pioneered, the team pioneered the concept of responsible luxury, which was game changing in the global hotel industry, etc. Those are the motivators, etc. Yes, awards are always welcome. And I'm grateful to people who honor and recognize them. But I think that should not be the motivators. The motivators have to be, right, the results that you achieve. We always say that a champion is only crowned in the ring, right? But if you really want to see why he's a champion, you've got to look at his backside of his back end. That how many hours does he sleep? Is he part of the 5 a.m. club? How many hours does he practice? What does he do, etc. Right? That's what it's all about.
Apart from the hotels, any other discipline like a sports or movies or something, any kind of a sports player or movie star, they have your impact on your life?
I've always enjoyed cricket.
Okay.
I've loved it. I wasn't much of a cricket player. I wasn't much of a sports person in school, but I enjoy my movies, and I think I'm a balance of everything.
Did they add up to your professional life success?
I'm sure all of it did. All of it did. Yes.
Oh, what's a spark in you that keeps you motivated till date, and you still continue to encourage people like us at this age also? So any goal that you have set for yourself at this moment also?
Very clear. After 45 years, when I left ITC and I stepped down from ITC into superannuation, I gave myself a target, just as I had given myself a target when I had started as a CEO. I had given myself a target then. I now give myself that I am going to give back to the industry that gave me so much. Right? I'm ever so grateful to the tourism industry for what they did. So I'm going to spend the rest of my life in giving back to the industry, the tourism industry, the hospitality industry. My investments are in those fields, encouraging youngsters to come forward. I'm happy to go and lecture in various colleges on the importance of hospitality, on the importance of tourism, part of various tourism bodies, etc. Advising hotels on various things, etc., even on a non-commercial basis. So my entire life is now driven by giving back to the industry, right? And I think it's the most wonderful industry, and far too many people don't know about this industry.
Yes.
So I think that's really the task that I've taken on.
I think parallelly we are also moving in that direction also with the informal education that we are doing through our channel, through the unleashing your struggles, your story, and your success to younger ones around or to anybody.
That's why I agreed when Gautam told me. That's why I agreed to talking to you, because I
thank you very much, sir, for your
contribution. I hope the message goes across. The message is very clear that India has a great potential for tourism, and it can be the engine of economic growth. Within tourism, hoteliering is a great career. It's a business of businesses. It's a profession like no other. Be proud of it, and I motivate more and more youngsters. I'm happy to speak to anybody or mentor anybody who would like to come forward.
Cutting 45 years to one short line, what is your biggest learning in the industry that you pass on and you still recall that learning?
I pass on that these are the greatest 10 two-letter words, and those people who have worked with me know it. And those greatest two-letter words are, if it is to be, it is up to me. As simple as that. Your failure and success depends on you in person. You can't in failure look out of the window and say that, the company didn't do this for me, didn't do that for me, etc. Right? Failure and success depends on you. So if it is to be, it is up to me. Right? That's the most important thing. I alone determine my success.
Presently, we would like to know your day in life.
My day in life, as I told you, I do a couple of talks to youngsters. I'm invested in a couple of food startups. I'm in one or two tourism associations where I'm guiding, advising, etc. I'm in the process. I'm just launching one book, and I'm in the process of. The second one is going under print. The third one I'm busy in writing. So I've got multiple things, but all related to tourism, driven by a single objective of giving back to the industry that gave me so much.
Okay, so now it's time for me to answer if you have a question for me, because now the ball is in your court. You have been answering too many questions of mine because I was very curious. And so any question for me as well if you have.
No, not really. I'm happy to see the work that you're doing.
Thank you very much, sir.
And I think that we need to encourage more and more youngsters to come in to this industry. I think post the pandemic, there's been a little fear. There's been an exit of people from this industry. Many have not come back. Right? Some people believe the industry was unfair, but the industry had no choice. We had to close down hotels, etc. Some people couldn't sustain. Therefore, they had to let people go. But pandemic is not something that's by God's grace going to happen every day. It's once in
a century,
and how
right?
many lifetimes would such a
Yes,
thing
yes,
come?
yes.
And and the industry is evolving. I understand that the current generation has different needs. We didn't have things like the cell phone. We didn't have the internet, etc. So we had nothing but work to do. Right? If you wanted to watch a movie, we could only go to a hall. Where could you go, etc. But today there are other things that people would want to do. But the industry is adapting to it first. It was unheard of that even if you got a Sunday literally off, and in our time, today most hotel companies give you a 2 day a week off, etc.
Yes.
So the industry is adopting, and I think it's and technology is sort of benefiting that you don't need to put in those long hours in the industry as we had to put it. So I think that it's as much work as you would put in any other industry. And I would urge more and more youngsters who haven't had a look at this industry or who haven't considered this as a career through your channel to please come forward and at least look at it.
Thank you very much, sir, for your time. And it has been a very truly mesmerizing learning conversation with you. And I hope every word of yours encourages me along with our audience to perform better and to live up to the expectations because people look to us, world is looking at us. And so thank you very much for doing this, sir.
God bless you. Thank you.